My view in general is that the previous years, a lot of people were saying, well, you can't just get a nomination just because you're being black. Just because you're black, you shouldn't just nominate people because they're black.
Yeah.
Which I think is very fair enough. You shouldn't just nominate ethnic minorities. They shouldn't just be nominated on the basis that they are ethnic minorities. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, the performance has to be there. The movie has to be very, very good at the same time.
Yeah.
But that said, there were some great films with black people, with black leads over the last 2 years that should have been nominated. Selma was very good. Mm-hmm. Definitely not a Best Picture winner, but it should have been nominated. And you know, the lead actor put in a great performance, and I don't believe he was nominated. It was like really weirdly sort of like under the radar, and like he could have definitely won it. He was very, very good as Martin Luther King. That was very good. Creed, I thought, was fantastic. Really was great last year. And there was no nomination for Michael B. Jordan, and there was a nomination for Stallone. And I just thought that was a really weird decision.
Yeah, it didn't
like,
make sense.
It was a really sort of poor decision, and I'm not. So it's sort of one of those things where, to an extent, yes. Well, no, to a very real extent, absolutely, that the performances should have to be good enough to be deserving of an Oscar nomination. And yes, there will absolutely have been people who are angry that no black people were there, or out of virtue of them purely being black. I was angry because the performance was there, the movie was good, and it's the best Rocky film besides Rocky. It's Creed. It really genuinely is.
Yeah.
And you know, that was such a hard job to do. Like the guy who Ryan Coogler, who directed Fruitvale Station as well with Michael B. Jordan, and he's a very good black director who's getting these sort of movies, who's getting these, you know, had to write the script and everything and be like, I want to make a fucking Rocky movie. You know, really ambitious piece to completely change what Rocky's all about and make this film. And it should have been more well recognised. And that, you know, and that is because the Oscars, it is just a load of old white guys who are making the decisions. The Oscars definitely do need more ethnic representation within the boards and stuff, and that's happened. And then this year, it's sort of been like the year where, all right, that was so white, let's change that. So Mahershala Ali won what I don't think was absolutely a guaranteed Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
Viola Davis has won what you're absolutely saying, absolutely should have won Best Supporting Actress.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, lay the cards on the table, right? If it's about a white gay person, if it's literally just about white people, and the cast of La La Land were black, La La Land would have swept up. It would have definitely won it. That's absolutely categoric truth, and I don't want anyone disagreeing with that, because it's absolutely what would have happened. Like, La La Land would have been labelled as like an absolute historic achievement, like, and would have been unbelievable, and it just would have won it. It's absolutely what would have happened. Now that's not. So for me, what happened here was Moonlight won, and you know, all for everything I'm saying, yeah, they need more representation. This all needs to happen within the Oscars. It does need to happen. You know, and with any award ceremony, movies should not be getting alienated on the virtue that people are black. It's mental. You know, I went into it. But for example, there are films about homosexuality. This is not the first movie to talk about gay people. I'm going to be frank right there. It's one of the first films with black leads who are male, who are gay within the film. The characters are gay. Yeah, I suppose, you know, it has that. I mean, you know, without having to, I don't want to harp on about how great The Wire is, but has several characters from ethnicities who are homosexuals, including one of the main characters in the whole show. Did that to no fanfare. You know, that film was not, you know, well, that show is not lauded as being exceptionally diverse. No one was saying, you know, almost, there's nobody typing the keyboards, oh, The Wire should really get more credit, apart from me, because it should. But, you know, so it's done it. It's not like it's the first thing ever this has ever happened before on screen. It's not like it's utterly groundbreaking. So to that extent, yeah, you'd think that, like, a great movie with homosexual characters was Brokeback Mountain for me. Really is fantastic. And at the time, that really was a challenging picture. And, like, you know, that was a big moment for it. And it's almost as if the Oscars bottled giving it to it because it didn't want to be seen as giving the movie Oscars on the virtue that it was gay. That it was about gay people. Yeah. Brokeback Mountain didn't win anywhere near as much as it could have won, really. It could have really swept up.
Yeah. And
it didn't. And it's almost as if the Oscars were sort of a bit like, well, it was really good and it was about gay people, but we don't want it to win awards on the basis that people will be like, well, you only won because it was gay. So for me, yeah, Moonlight is not. It certainly wasn't the best picture of the year. And it was entirely political why it did win. Which, and as I said before, it was the wrong decision for the right reasons, because the political motivations behind it were the very best of intentions. You know, these sort of things do need to be happening within the Oscars. These sort of nominations do need to be happening more. But I feel like there's a real like sort of black people and the criticism that the performances need to be there. You can't just give Oscars to people because of virtue of them being black, which is what they did sort of do this year, as opposed to last year when there was no nominations whatsoever. It was a backlash against that, and this is what led to this decision. But for me, what really needs to be happening is the best people in Hollywood need to be working with more diverse people. Absolutely need to be working with more diverse people. Martin Scorsese cannot just go and make the same film over and over and over again. He just can't. Wolf of Wall Street, for as good as it was, is Goodfellas. The movie is Goodfellas. It's exactly the same. Like, fundamentally, the film is exactly the same. Scorsese is a brilliant director. He needs to be working with more diverse casts in like diverse films that are different from what he's usually working within. The best people need to be working with the best people from different ethnicities. You cannot have David Fincher go and make a movie like The Social Network that's just an absolute glamour. Why the fuck that story even need telling? Why did it need telling? And like everyone's like, well, yeah, he did such a good job of it.
Great
like,
film, but it's...
Well, for me, it's a film that's okay, but for me, there's just no real stakes. It's about as well made as it could possibly have been, because Fincher's a fucking genius. But, the best people need to be working with people from different ethnicities.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a black director to take black people to make a movie about black people. People need to be working with people from all different sorts of ethnicities all the time.
The shoehorning things too much into like, well, this is a black character, so he has to like act like he's a black character.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
he has to act black.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a bit different like in modern society, because I think there's a lot of roles that could be easily given to black people and just acted the same way.
Definitely.
But
the character's ethnicity isn't a problem with it.
It's just that's just a guy basically,
Exactly.
or that's just a woman. Whereas that it always seems to me that whenever there's a black character in a film, they're just like proper gangster. Or
exactly.
Like
or the black casting, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is another thing, is that the roles that black people get, like. A friend of mine who is black, she complained that it's always a drug dealer that black people are playing. It's always like some musician. It's always like some guy like this or whatever, or it's Martin Luther King. It's like these are the only people that like black people can play, and that's a problem in terms of modern in relative society. The kind of movies that win Oscars are biopics about famous people, performances like Abraham, Day-Lewis winning for Lincoln. These sort of big performances where it's like about historical people. Obviously, black people have been so subjugated in Western society it's very, very recent. All the stuff is very, very recent. So when you're talking about the people sort of, a movie like Hidden Figures, which is about the black women involved in like NASA and people like that who, it's history, and the history books have just shit on and like hidden up and like completely not giving these people the credit that they deserved. And it's sort of like these movies do need to be getting made, like about people, celebrating people from different ethnicities who have achieved a great deal within society or have made significant strides. But also, they don't always need to be. Doesn't necessarily need to be the biopics to where these people, that are being made. It needs to be the best people working continuously with diverse casts, and not always casting DiCaprio. It's all directors not always casting the same white actors, and
That reminds me, I've just seen Great Wall with Ben Affleck.
Is it proper shit? I know, with Matt Damon, I believe.
Matt Damon, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very easy mistake.
They have similar sort of looks, I guess. But yeah, it's better than you expect, because it's actually not a historical drama film.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like ridiculous.
It's like aliens attacking
it's like a
the Great Wall
film, innit? It's like a mental film that Matt Damon's for some reason in.
But yeah, Matt Damon was a terrible casting because they made him put on a Scottish accent for some reason.
He's in China, playing a Scotsman in China. That sounds fucking mental. I love the sound of it. I must watch this film.
It's better than you expect. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, exactly, I think the point I'm sort of coming up with there is really like, there's just not enough sort of you know, within society, there just isn't enough of a focus on black people just being, you know, like the vast majority of black people aren't criminals, aren't like gangbangers, aren't coming from this. They're also not thug musicians, and like, you know, as if like, but it's because or Miles Davis and you know, like, are you coming from this sort of thing? It's like there's a lot of just normal black people living everyday lives, and it's like, you know, I think sometimes movies sort of like, they just need to sort of, there needs to be more sort of diverse casts in general, and I think it's a good step, like Star Wars making a very diverse cast now, all that sort of stuff, and like really like hammering diversity home.
Yeah,
like, lots of Scottish people in Star Wars all over.
Star Wars is a bit of a bad example because they're clearly just doing it like
just to do it.
Yeah,
of course it is. But there would be lots of different ethnicities in the future, or in, yeah. You know, like in space. There fucking would be. So I haven't really got a problem with it, but at the same time, it's still like, at the same time, that's what was so funny about Rogue One for me, is that a white female lead, just like the other Star Wars, a white female English lead twice.
Yeah, you
could
are
have easily not been. It could
you
have
are right.
Been
They should not have done that. Like,
it could have easily
really
not been a white English. It's the exact same character. Well, not the exact same character, but it's the exact same basic character. Just this white female British.
They could have done anything else other than posh British white girl.
Absolutely. which is why I really liked Creed, is that the movie's just authentically like, this is just black people's lives. Like, she's a singer, but she's not like, she isn't like this thug sort of rapper or anything. It isn't like built around this sort of thug image. She's just like the female lead, who I believe is Tessa Thompson in Creed, and she's fantastic in it. Like, it really is a great performance. The relationship, the romance in that film is fantastic, and she absolutely should have been nominated last year. And it's just a really authentically portrayed sort of like, you know, people are just real people.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's what, you know, like, you can have really diverse casts, or you can, and things can be based around reality that don't always have to be racial. Like The Wire is a great, it's a social commentary in all of America. There are racial elements to it. But racism isn't like this underlying theme that's like, you know, people getting killed and it's because it's a racism sort of thing. It's because of this. The cast is majoritively black, and this is black people all throughout the cast. There's black people within the gangs. There's black people on the police force, and then there's also white people, and there's also people of other ethnicities that are just all working, and it's all about black people trying to bring down other black people. You know, it's just black people just happen to be the main cast members. There isn't. It's because the city it's set in has black people living in it who are doing all of these things. It's like, I just feel like, you know, there's so much fucking white, like, so much whiteness. Like this idea of a movie set in China. Who's the lead? Oh, Matt Damon. You know, I almost feel like we're getting to a point with black people black people are winning in Hollywood. Where are all the Asian people? There's no Asian actors ever. Because Asians are terrorists.
And if they are, it's all in stereotypical.
Asians are terrorists.
Oh, you mean that kind of Asian?
Or like Chinese, or you know, however.
Like East Asian.
It's all the same
people.
stuff.
It's always really stereotyped.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really bad.
Another example, which is like accentuating the same point, is Dev Patel.
Yeah.
Like, he is literally the go-to Asian actor, and it's becoming a bit of a joke for me, to be honest, because me personally, I think he's not that great an actor. Yeah, he's just casting loads and loads of shit.
Just like, well, what do we need an Asian actor? And you know, Dev Patel, for this, apparently his role in Lion, like, you know, he wanted that sort of role because he was constantly being cast as like the hacker, and like, you know, not like a big, you know, like just constantly in like his nerd sort of roles,
like in Chappie,
like, trying to give him sort of those sort of roles. Yeah,
he was terrible in Chappie, by the way.
Yeah, he's always sort of being cast in those sort of roles, and it's like, you know, and like, I read an article, this guy was like, if Moonlight doesn't win, I'll give up acting. And it was a bit of a ridiculous comment, but like, it got some traction on social media. And he was an Asian actor. And he was saying the amount of times he's been offered like terrorist parts and all this sort of stuff. Because these are the only things that Hollywood's making.
Yeah.
And this is why a movie like Hacksaw Ridge just really, in my opinion, is just, what the fuck is the point? What the fuck is the point of making it? What's the point of making it? It wasn't even. You didn't even make a movie. You can't even say, well, it was about a conscientious objector in World War II. Do you not think that's mental? Yeah. The real story sounds unbelievable, but you made a bog standard, proper play-by-numbers war film, and it's getting all these nominations and stuff. For me, the problem isn't that black films aren't getting nominated. It's that the films that are getting nominated shouldn't be getting made. Why the fuck are studios signing off on this shit? Why is this war film fucking being made?
Yeah.
It tells us nothing about... It's no reflection of human society. Movies are at the best when they are reflecting a side of humanity that you either didn't know about within yourself. You either didn't know about, you learnt something about other people, right? You learnt something about other people. Magic by the Sea is a great film, and you learn something about mental illness to a point within the film, and tragedy and grief. And the movie's really, like, you know, it stuck with me in a way that's sort of like, well, yeah, that's what would happen. That is what life would be like in those circumstances. You know, it wouldn't be. You know, there's so many films where, you know, people are down, like, you know, not everything sort of plays out the way it plays out in Hollywood all the time, and that's why these films, these sort of films need to be getting recognised. Stories of like human triumph, but we don't need to see another war film about white people going to war. You know, that's why black people should be pissed off. Why the fuck is this movie even being made? Black people should be pissed off that a movie like Arrival has just Forrest Whitaker playing the other guy, just the guy who's sort of like the commander. None of the leads are black.
Oh,
just Forrest Whitaker's black.
Such a pointless character.
You know, Forrest Whitaker's just black because it's Forrest Whitaker and he's black. And it's like, why not have him in there? Well, we need to have a general character. Okay, this is a perfect place to put a black actor. So let's try and get an old black actor. Let's put Forrest Whitaker in there. You know, let's not have him as the lead of the film. A movie that was made, Southpaw, with Jake Gyllenhaal, who did everything he could in a pretty poor film, that had some black actors in it, all cast as thugs, all cast as like, you know, musicians, or, you know, 50 Cent's in the movie and he's playing like this wily sort of like crafty promoter. And then, you know, he's the white lead in a fictional boxing film where already all the boxing films are made about white people pretty much across the board.
It's not a boxing film, by the way, let me
Southpaw.
correct you there.
What?
Because everyone refers to Southpaw as a boxing film, but it's not about boxing.
Well, that's
it's not like...
Did you like Southpaw?
Yeah, I like Southpaw.
I thought it was shit, man. Really shit.
It's not shit.
No, it's not shit.
And it's not a boxing film.
Well, irrelevant.
Yeah, we can't get into this discussion.
But, you know, Forrest Whitaker again is just cast as like, you know, the guy who's like the mentor, all these sort of things. It's the leading roles in Hollywood in movies that aren't biopics, that aren't going to black people. That's what black people should be angry about. That's the problem. And the reason, to a point, the reason is that far too many of the roles are being given to actors who came from affluent areas. There is not enough. I worked at a theatre camp in the summer of 2014, very prestigious performing arts camp, and there was one black kid who was in all of who was older than say 13. Where there were a few black kids who weren't particularly interested in theatre. And there was one black kid who was interested in theatre, and he was just absolutely all over everything. It was, you know, just really like, it was in all the shows and all this stuff. But one black kid, the rest of them, all white, really, really white camp. All because it was you needed to pay like $13,000 to go there. Your family needed to be affluent. So if all these people, this is where you're learning about acting, this is where you're learning about art, this is where you're thinking to yourself, I can be an actor, right? But yeah, you need to pay me $14,000 to go there. I need $14,000 to go there. Have you got it, Mum? No, because I'm black and I'm poor as fuck. You know, and it's not even so much about black people. Working class people aren't getting a look in. There's not a working class actor who's come from obscurity since Stephen Graham, coming from like Liverpool, or, you know, like someone like Danny Dyer. And like people, you know, these sort of actors who are always casting the same stuff.
It's the same.
Always the same working class roles.
It's the same in the music industry.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Exactly the same in the music industry.
Whenever I hear about someone who's gaining traction and getting successful, it's always like, oh, my dad was like a really successful musician, like in the 50s
exactly. It's
or
the
whatever.
people getting opportunities are coming from affluent areas where they can afford to study and pursue music as a career. Because real people, real working class people, the amount of money that's been cut in this country and in America, and, you know, largely across the board, the arts is being cut dramatically. You're not going to see a band like the Arctic Monkeys come through anytime soon, because there are no bands like the Arctic Monkeys playing, because they can't afford to. There's no way for studio time. There's nowhere they can go to get that sort of traction. There's very few bands coming from working class back areas, and which is mad to me, because the large majority of the country is working class or coming from poorer areas. I think. And America's exactly the same, if not more so. Mm-hmm. It will be incredibly difficult for black actors to come through. It's why, you know, you've got John Boyega, who's very, you know, comes from a very affluent area in London. Comes from like, I mean, comes from London. I don't really know specifically the necessaries of his background, but he's very well spoken, so I can only assume that he comes from quite a nice background, and that's that's a real problem why black people aren't sort of getting roles, and this is why, because there just will not be a large enough number of black people coming through as actors, and especially as young actors who are very, very good. There just won't be a large number. There's just not as many as there is of white actors. So when you're picking from these movies, you're constantly making films. It's white people getting these roles almost all the time.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
It lies on the studio's heads to encourage this at the base level, like where people are entering into this field. It lies with the studios.
Because that's where you're gonna get your next sort of. This is where you're gonna get more black people. Black people.
The next Denzel Washington.
Exactly. The next Denzel Washington. Or your next. You're gonna get
Viola Davis.
The next Viola Davis. Exactly. These people came through in a really difficult time for black actors. But when Hollywood needed black actors to represent black people, they came through in a time when it was sort of like, well, we need to start casting black people in things because there's loads of black people living in America now. So we need to start actually casting black people. That's when these actors were coming through. Now that we've had a black president and that black people are gaining a real voice in the thing, it's not just a case of casting black people anymore. They need to be getting big roles. I mean, given the opportunities that are huge directors who are capable of creating great movies, creating great roles, like La La Land was, these people need to be thinking, all right, I'm gonna cast from as diverse a group as I possibly can, and whoever comes out, they're the best actor for the job. In Moonlight, the characters didn't have chemistry and they were both black. The characters not everyone needs to be from the same ethnicity. Chemistry comes from honest relationships that are believable and plausible and that fit and are right and that seem real to us as viewers. I think whilst Moonlight doesn't deserve this Oscar, it being given the Oscar is almost the Oscars apologising for the amount of great films with black actors in that they've ignored in the past. If I look at something like Django Unchained, that was just absolutely exceptional. It's a great piece, again, as Tarantino's always hated by the Oscars, but why was that film not getting absolutely sort of like getting the plaudits it absolutely deserved? Too violent. Django Unchained. It was too violent to win an Oscar. There's so many performances from like black actors and films with like black sort of themes that have just been ignored largely by the Oscars in the past. That it's a win for those sort of films, really.